Okay, let's continue with our presentation. Humans, Hidden Potentials in a New World. This is part 2. So let's pick up where we left off. We were talking about time, and the definition of time is time as we think of it in the third dimension is the result of moving your perception from one set of frequencies to another in a linear fashion. If time is the result of moving your perception from one set of frequencies to another in a linear fashion, then what is a timeline? A timeline is simply a series of perceptions that produce a series of feelings and actions, some local and some non-local. So, is that clear? A timeline is a series of perceptions. And those perceptions produce a series of feelings and actions, some local and some non-local. When it comes to timelines, there's no such thing as a straight timeline or a for sure future. All of reality is dynamic and continuously changing. And that means that we can change things at any moment. Nothing is fated for sure. Every choice moves you in a new direction with new possibilities. Something that looked inevitable can change at the last minute. It can change at the last second, even. So I tell people, don't ever give up. Take a stand, hold it. So now let's talk about the end of time. We generally think of the end of time as the end of the world. You hear a lot of people talk about the end of time as if, oh, it's over, we're all done. It is the end of a world. Time is the end of a world, or the end of time. And that world is the third dimensional world and the limits that we are all familiar with. So I hope that's sinking in. It's the end of a world. Okay? The end of time is the end of linear perception, linear thinking, and other directed causality. The end of time is the beginning of multidimensional perception and a step toward the full potential of consciousness. I cannot emphasize that enough. Okay, so the end of time is just the end of the way of a world, and it's the beginning of another world. The end of time means moving to the fourth or fifth dimension, where perception is timeless and more fluid. It means learning to put your consciousness anywhere you need it to be. And I'm reminded, a little story here, of when I had peritonitis for the umpteenth time. And I thought I caught it in time. I thought I started taking action to fix the problem, to get, to end the peritonitis without going to the hospital for surgery. And so I'm working and I'm asking myself, did I catch it in time? Did I catch it in time? Did I catch it soon enough? No answer. Intuition, totally silent, completely leaving me dangling. So finally, I called the doctor. The doctor made the appointment, the arrangements to go have a surgery. And I thought, okay, I might as well get ready. I packed my bags, take a shower, get cleaned up. I sit down to read while I'm waiting for my husband and my daughter to come home and take me to the hospital. And while I'm reading, in between the lines of the book, I hear this little voice say, yes, you caught it soon enough. Keep doing what you're doing. You will be okay. And so half an hour later, there's my husband and my daughter, and I say, oh, I'm not going. They about had a conniption. Yes, you're going, blah, blah, blah. Nope, I got a message. So that's putting your consciousness where you need it to be, sort of. Okay? Going to see what is the outcome of not going to the hospital. What is the outcome of not going to the hospital while continuing to fast, complete water fast for 10 days, doing the purge, which is a procedure that kills infection. So that's was one of my first steps into multidimensional consciousness, and realizing that I could put my consciousness anywhere I wanted it to be, get information and act on that here and now, and change the course of where my life was going. So learning to put your consciousness anywhere you need it to be. Once you become multidimensional, time, linear thinking, and other directed causality become secondary to deliberate use of your own consciousness. Now, you might be a little shaky at first, but the more you practice directing your own consciousness, the more you discover how to use that consciousness effectively. Your path, which is your timeline, is determined by the way you use your perception and the choices and decisions you make. And that those choices and decisions are known as alignments. For those of us who deal with consciousness in other places, those are alignments. What did he align with? What did she align with? What do you think she'll align with? Etc. Our timeline of humans as humans of Earth is determined by the way we use perception and the choices and decisions we make collectively. That's a very important point. There are personal, family, village, national, and planetary timelines. Remember, you're not the only one making choices and creating. You're not the only one pulling the timeline in a particular direction. The more people who go in one direction, the more others follow in the timeline for a nation or a region will shift. When it comes to alignment, both personal and planetary, there are only two choices: death or life. That's it. You have to align with death or life, something that the little men in brown robes emphasized a number of times. Are you going to choose an alignment? You move toward becoming an eternal being when you choose to align with life. That's very, very important. You have to choose it. It doesn't just happen to you. It's not this mystical, magical thing that takes over. So here's something I said earlier, bears repeating. When everything you do nurtures life, you will have eternal life. Matter lasts for a little while, but the pressures of constantly shifting and dynamically interacting frequencies will break them down. And here you see things that have lasted for quite a while, but after a while, other forces begin to work on them. This breakdown is accelerated when attention shifts to new and easier ways of doing things. We're always looking for an easier way. Sometimes the easy way turns out to be not so easy. But if you can look at what are some of the outcomes of this thing, not just the one thing you want, but what are all the outcomes, then you can begin to choose wisely. Reality flows where attention goes. You stop putting attention on your roof, pretty soon it's leaking. Stop putting attention on your car, pretty soon it doesn't run. Things change. We're trying to make life easier for ourselves. You can't really do that without stepping into your power. So the end of linear time is a chance to step into multidimensional existence. So instead of waiting for things to happen, you go to see what that outcome is. You just go there. Multidimensional existence is putting consciousness anywhere in the space and time frequency matrix in order to access experience or information. That's the difference between time, the end of time, entering into multidimensional existence. It's the difference between 3D and 4D or 5D. 4D, you're moving into it. 5D, you're in it. There's no such thing as waiting to see outcomes. You make outcomes. Stepping into multidimensional existence often brings you into contact with people from other planets, other dimensions, and other places in the cosmos. It's kind of fun. Why? Because multidimensional existence expands consciousness and energy flow, which increases your light. The more energy flow you can get flowing through you, the more light you will give off. You might not be able to see that light, but other people can see it. Here's an example of some of my efforts to expand my own light and step into multidimensional existence. Here I am. This is myself and Patty Greer. We're at Contact in the Desert. She had created a video called Crop Circle Diaries and interviewed me in it, and she was presenting it at the Contact in the Desert conference. And I was off in the wings of the stage, and she said, "Come on out here, say something to the people." And I was not comfortable with that, but I went out on the stage. I have no idea what I said. And somebody in the audience took this picture. And she said, "I took it because I was stunned at the amount of light that you had around you." On the stage, you can see I look quite washed out. Patty looks kind of normal. But the computers and the cameras could not handle that extra light, putting it onto the big screens on the side. And what you see is basically just a whole bunch of light with kind of a microphone sticking out of it. So I didn't think I was getting anywhere, but I'm getting somewhere. So, and that's the next stage of human development that I'm trying to describe and put out there for people to learn from. So expansion also makes you aware of your roots elsewhere in the universe. It makes you aware of your telepathic abilities and other skills of consciousness, such as the clairs, intuition, teleportation, so many things. In 3D, it's hard to manage those things. It's hard to go after those things because 3D is so demanding in the effort just to survive. So there isn't time to develop. But if we could begin to move a little bit toward an easier life, which is the development of consciousness, then everything changes, everything. As awareness expands, you become highly sensitive to the energies circulating within you and in the world around you. Highly sensitive. A lot of people say, "Oh, I want to expand, I want to ascend, I want out of here." Doesn't work that way. The more you expand, the more inclusive your knowledge, your feeling, your perception becomes. The more pain you will also feel. You have to choose life and health and joy on purpose. You begin to see how many of our problems, pains, and sorrows are the result of our own choices, our actions, and our ignorance. Why? Because we're not using consciousness. We're still playing objective observer. We're still playing victim. We're still in ignorance about how to use consciousness. Many people cling to helplessness, play victim, and hope God will do something, while failing to use the power of their God-based consciousness they are made of. I've heard that many, many times. Why did God allow this? We are the God stuff. We're made of it. We're just not using it very well. So where can we go from here? What can we learn from those who are more advanced? How do we get to a new world? So learning from advanced races is problematic because people from elsewhere in the cosmos have a much more expansive and powerful consciousness, and they're not much interested in spending much time on the ground with us. So that is a very big problem. Why don't they want to spend so much time on the ground with us? Because we spend so much time wallowing in war, pollution, and sickness with little mental or emotional self-discipline and some very destructive behaviors. Many off-planet races are committed to the Prime Directive. It's a moral, ethical, and legal agreement that prohibits interference and even contact. And here's a quote from it. I'm going to read the whole thing, but here's a quote. It says, prohibits contact with any world that has not yet achieved interstellar travel capacity and has not established an organized, continuous relationship with an evolved external interstellar culture. So let me read the Prime Directive to you, just for those of you who haven't ever read it. It's kind of short. Got 10 rules. Okay. Prime Directive, rule number 1. The Prime Directive is to serve as a moral, ethical guide and a legal template. 2. The Prime Directive is applicable to all cultures in any world that have not yet achieved interstellar travel capacity and have not established an organized, continuous relationship with an evolved, external, interstellar culture. Number 3, nothing within these articles shall authorize the Galactic Federation of Worlds personnel to intervene in matters which are essentially of the domestic, local, or private jurisdiction of any planetary system, or shall require the members to submit such matters to settlement under any articles of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. Number 4, as the right of each sentient species to live following the greater universal law of free will in accordance with its natural and biological cultural evolution is considered sacred, no members or personnel of the Galactic Federation of Worlds may interfere with the normal, autonomous, and healthy development of native life, society, and culture. Such interference includes introducing superior knowledge, strength, or technology to a world whose members and society are incapable of handling such advantages wisely, judged on their present level of spiritual, moral, and technological evolution. Number 5, the Galactic Federation of Worlds cannot expose an evolving species to technology that the species has not yet discovered or is currently capable of developing and using. Number 6, sharing and seeding of technology above the lesser evolved race evolutionary capability of understanding is prohibited or taken to the necessary minimum. Number 7, it is forbidden to interact or communicate with any native resident of a lesser evolved planet or culture using any device, appliance, machine, tool, weapon, or invention representing an improvement upon the science and technology already in existence upon said planet. Number 8, spiritual and moral knowledge should also be restricted to a bare and necessary minimum, only using communication methods and devices at the current level of understanding of the lesser evolved race. Number 9, it is not permitted to make contact with or interfere with lesser evolved races unless they are threatened by an outside source. In that case, it is the moral obligation of the personnel of the Galactic Federation of Worlds to evaluate the situation to determine a suitable course of action. The free will of a stage 1 or stage 2 planetary culture works in accordance with the greater universal law of evolution. When not coerced or influenced by an outside source working for their own benefit to the detriment of the said lesser evolved culture. Manipulation of free will upon a lesser evolved culture is nullified regarding the greater universal law of evolution. It is in this case considered by the Prime Directive as interference, and the Galactic Federation of Worlds reserves the right to intervene. Okay. And the last one, number 10, Federation personnel may not violate this Prime Directive unless they are acting to right an earlier violation or an accidental contamination of said culture. This directive takes precedence over any and all other considerations and carries with it the highest moral obligation. Let me repeat, contact is forbidden with any world that has not yet achieved interstellar travel capacity and has not established an organized continuous relationship with an evolved external interstellar culture. And I'll just say that the bad ETs do not follow the Prime Directive. And I think we have now developed interstellar capacity. So we are free to have some contact. So the goal for any world, any group of humanoids is free will, self-directed evolution, healthy development of life and society, and a culture that is unique to that world. This is what seeding life around the cosmos is about. Waiting to be contacted by ETs that you know nothing about, or to be picked up and brought on board ship when you have not made an effort to develop your consciousness and reach out to them, is not likely. So they are waiting for individuals to reach out. The bottom line when it comes to ETs and UFOs is that disclosure is personal. Let me repeat that. Disclosure is personal. Everybody's waiting for the government to say, oh yeah, they're here. That's not what the ETs are waiting for. They're waiting for enough of us to reach out with our consciousness and say, I'd like to get to know you, or something similar. Disclosure is personal first. Then it can become group. The tasks set before us by ETs are pretty daunting. So here's what they say we need to be doing if we want to have contact with them. First, we have to select leaders who are committed to peace and the evolution of the human race. We also have to put aside weapons of evil. And I'll just mention that I know of some weapons that would just blow your mind. Weapons of evil are weapons that are made specifically to take away other people's property, their resources, their rights, and to enslave them in any form or fashion. Those are weapons of evil, and that's mostly what we have here on the planet Earth. And we also have the bad attitude that says, yeah, that's okay. What about cooperation? What about working together? There's enough for everyone. They say that we also need to begin resolving conflicts at all levels within the self and between and among others. Here's the task list continued. They want us or suggest that we adopt an attitude of do no harm. Do no harm. How easy that is. We ought to think about learning to live together peacefully, to listen to the voice within, to learn to recognize truth. When truth is spoken, your whole self responds. You turn into a big goosebump. That's how you know you're hearing a truth or something that is true for you, something that you need to pay attention to. The truth is not the same for everyone. And we are to live in harmony with the ways of our planet. That's a big one. Live in harmony with the ways of our planet. We are being pushed toward transformation and reorganization. And most people think or hope it will be a magical, effortless transformation. Moments of transformation, however, often occur when your guard is down, you're distracted from chronic perceptual habits, your worries, your hurries, your gotta do's or gotta avoids, etc. Transformation in a 3D realm is neither magical nor effortless. It's the result of intent, effort, and action. And as you can see from these wonderful photos in the picture, everyone and everything takes a hand in shaping the world they want. So we are working our way toward what kind of world? Are we even conscious of what kind of world we want? Are we allowing ourselves to move toward that kind of world? Here's our world. Here's what the ETs see a lot of. It's awful. The very first thing to understand about multidimensional existence and the pristine beings who occupy space and travel through time is that this way of life is unacceptable. The Pleiadians have a saying, your environment is the symbol of your intellectual, emotional, and behavioral organization. And this is just an astounding picture. Anyone else think that now might be a good time for a community-driven solution for our paper waste problem? Wow. That's just mind-blowing. So here's some beginning steps toward fourth and fifth dimensional consciousness. And those beginner steps are the same as the steps to becoming self-sufficient. Why? Because you are expected to be aware, prepared, confident, and capable in all situations and under all conditions in all environments. If you can't do that here, you're not going to be able to do it anywhere else. ETs want people who have poise, intention, and presence. And those are the keys to the door of higher dimensions. Why do you have to be aware, prepared, confident, self-sufficient? Because out in space, you never know what you're going to run into. You can't get all flapped up and cry for help. You have to be ready for everything. So we're going to start with the know thyself. This is their biggest rule, know thyself. So I'm just going to read these. Who are you? What do you want? What is missing from your life? What is enough? That's a big one. What is enough? What is excess? What do you love to do? That's part of uncovering your passion, opening your heart. What do you love to do? What do you dislike doing? Where is the bulk of your knowledge? Each of us will have collected a huge amount of knowledge over the course of our lives. Where's the bulk of that? That's part of your set of gifts. Where's the bulk of your experience? That's different from your knowledge. And do you trust yourself to know and to love? If you trust yourself to know, then you're going to trust that little, still, small voice within when it says, don't do that. Or when it says, do that. Do you trust yourself to know and to love? So that has to do with you and your own development of yourself. Then they ask us to know our environment. So the suggestion that they have made is make lists of what you have on hand. Food, water, clothing, tools, medicine, money, technology, vehicles, equipment, etc. Make lists of what you have on hand. Number 2, are you in the right location for yourself and your family? If you built a home on the side of a volcano, we're headed into a pretty rough period. Might want to consider, are you in the right location? Number 3, what do you have for backup energy? Backup energy, multiple backup systems, is a standard for interstellar, even interplanetary travel. What do you have for backup communication? We have not developed our telepathic capacities. We need backup communication. What do you have for transportation? Who has skills that might be needed? Number 6, who has skills that might be needed? Who do you work well with? And number 8, who can you trust? So here's some advanced steps toward 4th and 5th dimensional consciousness. Number 1, have you dealt with your angers and your biases? You cannot work in the future if you're loaded with angers and biases, because it eventually comes out and screws things up. Number 2, can you maintain poise and presence in all situations? Under attack, in a moment of absolute utter joy, can you maintain poise and presence? Number 3, have you deeply understood organized religion, government, and their fears? Organized religion is one of the first institutions that gets introduced onto a planet in order to facilitate the takeover. It moves God outside the self. And then they go on from there, both government and religions, and they just create fears left and right. Do you understand how they do that? Number 4, have you discovered humility? Humility is one of the most freeing things that you can imagine. You don't have to be anybody or do anything special. You just have to be yourself. No apologies, no explanations needed. Just be who you are. Number 5, have you explored your own gifts of consciousness? What can you do? Some people are great healers. Some people are great dream walkers and dreamers. Some people are really good when it comes to clairvoyant moments or clairaudient messages from people on the other side. What are your gifts? Number 6, can you shift your brainwave frequencies? Now, that's something that might take a little bit of practice, but that's maybe something we can talk about in another video. Number 7, do you know what you are doing in the dream state? Everything is a dream. You're going to create consistently and congruently in all states, in all dimensions. What are you doing in those? It's very instructive. And often you are going to forecast what you are going to do in this reality by dreaming about it in another reality. Number 8, do you work well with all others? All others. Who do you not work well with? Can you get over that? Can you get past that? Can you integrate that? Number 9, can you work with others without expecting something in return? You're just given a gift. Number 10, do you know the kind of contribution you would like to make to your world? What about to other worlds? What are you doing here? What is your gift? Give it. Number 11, are you willing to continue educating yourself? So many people say things like, oh, I'm too old for that. No, you're not. One of the things, if you're going to live to be an eternal being, is you're constantly learning new ideas, new techniques, new processes, new concepts. That's a given. If you refuse to learn or you stop learning, you're going to go down with your time. You have to be willing to educate continuously. Number 12, are you comfortable with the idea of letting go of a planet and living on a mothership? Can you even imagine that? Some of those ships are huge. They're miles in diameter. I actually feel much safer on one of those ships than I do on the surface of this planet. Number 13, are you willing to work toward eternal life? Why have it all die out after 70 years? You don't even begin to get ripe until you're 50. We're naturally supposed to live 10 times our age at puberty. So for most of us, that's somewhere between 120 to 150 years. Most ETs, that's considered shameful. That you didn't take care of yourself well enough to even last your lifespan, your natural lifespan. They live hundreds of years, thousands. And yes, some of them do use technology to boost that capacity to restore, renew, regenerate. But they're doing that because they have something that they want to give to the world, the worlds, plural. A gift of life, a gift of joy, a gift of whatever that individual thinks they have to give, something good. So, what will you be, have, realize, or do once you move into other dimensions of consciousness? You know, all that stuff we just talked about, by the time you go through all that, you know, what are you going to have? Is it going to be worth it? Because it's a lot of work. Don't fool yourself. It takes some time. So what you will have or be or realize is that you will begin to see the world as an eternal field of awareness and yourself in relationship with all things. The field is everywhere, and it's aware. It's conscious, and it responds to you if you reach out. You'll have the experience of inner peace and patience. Oh my, I was the most impatient thing when I was younger. And gradually I learned to watch and to be patient. It's such a gift. And that leads to inner peace. You're not in a hurry anymore. You'll have an ability to generate steady love. That is so important. Generating love. It's not something that just happens to you. It's something that you decide to do. You'll have an openness to new ideas and ways of living, and you'll be able to work in cooperation with those around you. That openness leads to cooperation. It's like, oh, look how he is. Look how they think. Look what she's doing. Wow. There'll be an interest in continuing life instead of working toward the end of life. Everybody here is working toward the end of life. There'll be an understanding of how to begin reprogramming yourself to develop the advanced skills of consciousness. How do you do that? You start, you practice, and then you'd be shocked at what you can do. There'll be an ability to move around in time and to be comfortable in multiple dimensions. Most beings are very comfortable working third, fourth, fifth, and even sixth dimensions, or fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions, or six, 5, 6, 7, and eighth dimensions. Being stuck in one dimension, well, I'll just say that's not the way to grow up. Okay. Next, you have the willingness to learn quickly and deeply in order to become something or someone new. There's no more kicking and squealing. There's no more fighting. You're fighting yourself. You'll have mental and emotional self-discipline. We need that. Oh my. There'll be an ability to conduct oneself in a win-win manner. When you evolve into higher states of consciousness, it's always win-win. There's no need, no patience, no time, no space for vengeance or getting even or getting an advantage. There'll be an extraordinary insight and inventiveness in you that just comes to the surface. You'll see things, you'll know things, you'll understand things. There'll be an ability to use intuition, telepathy, and other skills of consciousness, clairaudience, OBE, dream walking, all kinds of things. There'll be a commitment to leaving no waste and no hurt. We have a long way to go on that one. There'll be an understanding of prime directive and natural law. We have all kinds of laws that have been enacted that are designed to take us down. What are we going to do about that? There'll be an ability to generate light and to project that light. You will be comfortable in your relationships with other dimensional beings. It sounds kind of fantastical when you start, but after you meet a few and deal with them, it's wonderful. You begin to see the sacrifice that they make to come here and try to help us. There'll be also membership in the interplanetary and interstellar community, and that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. So 4D, 5D, that's where we want to start understanding what characterizes a 4D, 5D place. So all of the above add up to becoming an entirely new human living in a new era, in a newly rebuilt world on planet Earth. And a world is bound by or bordered, or how do I say that? A world has frequency edges to it. And it sort of blends into some of the other worlds around it. But when you redo your world and you move up the frequency a little bit, some of the worst stuff at the low end of things can disappear. So a newly rebuilt world at a slightly higher range of frequencies. That's what we're after. In rebuilding our world, we will have an opportunity to sign on to the Prime Directive, to join the galactic community, to evolve humanity to new heights of wisdom, grace, and power, and to step into fourth, fifth, and higher dimensions. I think those are well worth it. Those opportunities are well worth going after. We will begin to understand the differences between third, fourth, and fifth dimensions. And I've talked about this in some of my other talks or on my website. So here's a few things that are different from one dimension to another. So the first one, the first column is third dimensional. The middle column is fourth dimensional. And the column on the right is fifth dimensional. So 3D people are short-lived, maybe 70 to 80 years. And maybe the last 5 or 10 years, they're completely dysfunctional. People in 4D live 2 to 5 times longer, and people in 5D live very long. Some of them are eternal. So in 3D, people are interested in making a living. 4D wants to make a world, and 5D wants to heal a world. 3D is very focused on the individual and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps alone. 4D is very celebrational around individuals, but also very focused on teams and groups. 5D is integrative, one with all things. All needs are filled by the culture, and therefore all work is with groups to improve life for all. In 3D, there's a lot of victim mentality. In 4D, there's personal responsibility. And in 5D, there's creator mentality. Let me create what I need. In 3D, we are confined to the planet. 4D is interplanetary, and 5D people are interstellar, and some are transdimensional. In 3D, education is lockstep and destructive to the full development of the human. In 4D, education is individually tailored to the child and his or her natural abilities. And in 5D, accelerated brain-compatible education is individually tailored to each child. Telepathy, the clairs, and the skills of consciousness are emphasized. In 3D, it's dark. There's no way to explain how dark it is here until you've been in some of the realms where you generate light and everything is light all the time. There is no dark. There is no night and day. So 3D is dark. It depends on outside electrical energy or batteries for any form of light other than the sun. In 4D, people generate partial light. A lot of them generate light. And it uses both outside electrical energy as well as some other form that I could not identify, but it's always on. It does not cast shadows. It's very soft, and it's about the brightness of a 50 or 60 watt light bulb. In 5D, the entire reality system is luminous. Oh my, sometimes it's hard to keep your eyes open there. It generates intense light from within and uses a form of energy that I thought was based on the manipulation of fields of plasma. In 3D, the focus is almost entirely on the past, and people believe they cannot see the future. In 4D, the focus is on the present, but there is an awareness of both past and many possible futures that they can choose from. In 5D, the people have moved beyond time as 3D people think of it. They are multidimensional, and they move among various configurations of situational frequency sets at will. Let me say that again. They are multidimensional, and they move among various configurations of situational frequency sets at will. In 3D, clothing is laborious to make, to clean, to repair, does not often fit well, and does not last very long. In 4D, clothing is assembled quickly, always fits well, some of it is self-cleaning, and each 4D group has its characteristic clothing. In 5D, clothing is individually fitted, is conscious, self-cleaning, contains energetic structures that perform a variety of functions such as healing, warming and cooling, energy feeds, physical prowess such as lifting, running, jumping, etc. And there's much more to be learned here. This clothing sometimes appears to be made of light. And lastly, in 3D, there's frequent sexual activity with little regard for the possibility of pregnancy. People believe it is their right to have sex, bear children, and abort them. In 4D, sexual activity is people have sex, but there's great care to avoid unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. All children are by choice, and they're treasured. In 5D, there is some sexual activity, but it's mostly used as healing. Sex is used as healing and retuning the body. Pregnancy is rare. Babies are cloned to high-level DNA specifications. So those are some of the differences. You can go to my website, pennykelly.com, and somewhere up on there, there's a whole set of papers that talk about the differences. It has, I think, 4 or 5 pages. So, okay, once you begin the journey of self-transformation, be aware that the universe will meet you halfway. You are not living in a vacuum, nor are you operating in one. Begin redesigning yourself and the world you live in. You will have to demonstrate here how you would live there. I can't emphasize that enough. You will have to demonstrate here how you would live there. There's a lot to do. So let's begin. The new world begins with you, with us, with all of us. Thank you so much for being here and for listening.